Don't look there, the rancher stared, and froze in shock. The sun was sinking low behind the red hills when Jacob Hale reined in his horse at the edge of the ravine. The land around his ranch had always been quiet at this hour, the kind of silence that felt heavy but familiar. For 20 years, Jacob had trusted that silence. Tonight, it felt different, like the earth itself was holding its breath. Jacob wiped the dust from his eyes and scanned the valley. His cattle should have been grazing near the creek, but the land lay empty. No lowing, no movement, not even the usual flutter of birds. He felt a strange tightening in his chest, the kind a man gets when he knows something is wrong but doesn't yet understand what. He urged his horse forward, boots creaking in the saddle. That was when he heard it, a soft, broken sound drifting up from below. It wasn't an animal, it wasn't the wind, it sounded almost like a voice, thin and strained, carried by the evening air. Don't look there. Jacob froze. His hand went instinctively to the worn grip of his revolver. He hadn't imagined it. Someone had spoken, but there was no one in sight. Who's there? He called out, his voice rough from years of shouting over open plains. No answer came, only the echo of his own words bouncing off the rocks. He swallowed hard and nudged his horse closer to the ravine's edge. The creek below glimmered faintly, but something dark lay sprawled near the water. At first, his mind refused to name it. Then understanding struck, and his blood ran cold. It was one of his ranch hands. Or what was left of him. Jacob slid from his horse, knees unsteady, and climbed down the narrow path. The man's eyes were wide open, frozen in terror, mouth stretched as if he had tried to scream. Deep marks scored the ground around him, long and jagged, as though something enormous had been dragged away. Jacob stepped back, heart hammering. He had seen death before, gunfights, stampedes, accidents, but never anything like this. There were no tracks he recognized. No sign of raiders or wolves. Just chaos carved into the dirt. Behind him, the bushes rustled. Don't turn around, a voice whispered urgently. Jacob stiffened. Slowly, he spoke through clenched teeth. You better explain yourself, friend. A young man emerged from the brush, pale as bone, hands shaking. He couldn't have been more than 20. I tried to warn him, the stranger said. I told him not to look. Jacob's eyes narrowed. Warn him about what? The young man swallowed and pointed toward the creek bend. It comes at dusk. Been following the cattle trails for weeks. Anyone who sees it doesn't get a second chance. Jacob felt anger flare through his fear. You expect me to believe there's some monster roaming my land? I expect you to believe what you're seeing, the young man replied, voice cracking. I watched it take him. The wind shifted, carrying a low, guttural sound from downstream. It wasn't a roar, but something worse, a slow, deliberate breathing. Jacob's stomach dropped. The bushes across the creek parted. At first, all Jacob saw were shadows. Then the shape rose, taller than a man, its outline twisted and wrong. Its eyes reflected the dying sunlight, glowing faintly as they fixed on him. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but his legs refused to move. Don't look directly at it, the young man hissed. That's how it gets you. Jacob forced his gaze downward, heart pounding so hard he thought it might burst. He raised his revolver blindly and fired. The shot echoed through the ravine, and the creature let out a sound that made Jacob's teeth ache. The ground trembled as it retreated into the trees. For a long moment, neither man moved. When the silence finally returned, Jacob sank to his knees. His hands shook uncontrollably. The young man stood over him, breathing hard. What is it? Jacob asked quietly. The stranger shook his head. Don't know its name. Folks in the next territory just call it the Watcher. Says it feeds on fear. The more you stare, the stronger it gets. Jacob looked at the body by the creek, then at the darkening woods beyond. His land, his home, was no longer safe. You could leave, the young man said softly. Most people do. Jacob rose slowly to his feet. His fear was still there, deep and sharp, but something else burned alongside it now. Determination. No, he said. This is my ranch. That thing doesn't get to claim it. The young man studied him, then nodded. Then you'll need help. As night fell over the valley, two figures stood at the ravine's edge, staring into the darkness without truly looking. Somewhere out there, something waited, watching. And for the first time, the Watcher had found men who wouldn't turn away, but also wouldn't freeze in shock.